Last week, I mentioned how I'd been considering making a video on Nintendo characters if they were in Assassin's Creed. And I didn't do that. What I ended up doing instead was Nintendo characters if they were Spider-Man villains, specifically in Spider-Man Miles Morales. And I'm glad I did that because that was a fun video to make and it's doing well. But I still wanted to do something with Assassin's Creed because Valhalla just came out. So I thought something that could be fun instead of taking Nintendo characters was to take Disney characters and put them in Assassin's Creed. And specifically taking inspiration from different Assassin's Creed games for different Disney characters, like putting Elsa in Valhalla or Hercules in Odyssey. For some of these I'll have some more fleshed out stories, for one a little bit less fleshed out, and then the final one I don't have a story for, and I'll explain why when I get to it. But either way, I think this is going to be a fun video, one that you'll want to hit the like button on to help me out and help this video out with algorithm stuff, and maybe if you're not subscribed it'll convince you to subscribe. Or you could just do that now, you could press the button right now. But either way, we're starting into the drawing. I've given up on trying to think of something other to say than let's go, so let's go! In the grand city of Arendelle lived two princesses, Anna and Elsa, who were closest of friends for a time. But when the elder sister, Elsa, approached her teenage years, her parents told her that she was destined to become not only the queen, but a member of the Assassin's Brotherhood. She would start her training immediately, but she was not to tell her sister of this training. Anna would be allowed to live a normal life until her adult years, and only then would she be given the choice of whether or not to join the Brotherhood. The secret drove a wedge between them, which would only get worse when their parents set off to visit another kingdom, and they were lost at sea. Elsa would continue her training in secret with an elder assassin named Bulda out in the mountains. Elsa was training to take full use of her environment, as all assassins were, but she'd take this a step further than most. She would become adept at using icicles as projectile weapons that worked well as distractions while she got up close to her enemies to do serious damage with her axe or flail. She was skilled at stealth but could also fight like a Viking. She was also incredibly durable on stakeouts, as she could remain out on a frosty Arendelle night for hours without tiring or freezing in the frigid air. It seemed the cold just never bothered her. Anyway, while all this was well and good for Elsa, little did she know that in her time away from her sister, Anna was growing close with the enemy. A member of the Knights Templar, sworn enemies of the assassins from the Southern Isles by the name of Hans, was romancing Anna and little by little introducing her to the ideals of the Knights Templar, doing all he could to make their way of life sound as moral and ideal as possible. And he was very persuasive. And his persuasiveness extended to other members of the community. As he grew closer and closer to the people of Arendelle, he was managing to sway many more people to the Templar way. This happened so subtly under Elsa's nose that by the time she caught wind of the scheme, it was too late. She was revealed to be a member of the so-called dreaded Assassin's Brotherhood, and everyone was terrified of her, even her sister. For the time being, all Elsa could do was flee to the mountains. There she would plot with Bulda and the other assassins to figure out a way they could sway back the people of Arendelle, and especially win back Anna's trust. On the streets of Agrabah, a young street rat grew up fending for himself. He'd have to steal food to stay fed, and this put him at odds with the city guards. He became a nimble athlete, able to leap from buildings and acrobatically make his way through any part of the city to avoid being arrested or otherwise punished. One day, this was noticed by the princess of Agrabah, Jasmine, who later found the boy. Jasmine revealed to him that she was a member of a group of assassins who were charged with defeating the villainous Knights Templar, and she worried that one of them had invaded her palace. Jasmine had never trusted her father's vizier, Jafar, but lately she'd grown more and more suspect that he either always had been or had recently been indoctrinated into the Templars. She worried he was trying to sway her father into enacting new laws that would lead to the Templars' so desired New World Order. Jasmine was one of very few assassins from the Brotherhood in Agrabah, and she was too busy with her own princessly duties to investigate Jafar's off-duty actions to see if he indeed was with the Templars. Because Aladdin already had impressive acrobatic skills and was adept at evading guards, she wanted to have him trained into joining the Brotherhood, so then he could spy on Jafar for her. She said he'd be paid handsomely for his work. The combination of that, and Aladdin being admittedly instantly attracted to the princess and wanting to do whatever she said, led him to set off to train with a charismatic assassin outside the city walls. This assassin's name was Gen Yi, and he taught Aladdin all the ways of the Assassin's Brotherhood. He taught him to fight with a hidden blade, fight with a scimitar, and even with his bare fists. And also managed to teach him a few things about wooing the beautiful princess. But this romancing would have to wait, for quickly after Aladdin returned from training to Agrabah, he started following Jafar, and it was quickly clear that Jafar had indeed been meeting with the Order of the Knights Templar and scheming to take control of the city. And while there were very few assassins in Agrabah, there were dozens of Templars lurking in the shadows. With this new evidence and the threat of a growing invasion, Aladdin would have to fight with Jasmine and Gen Yi to take down every single Templar in Agrabah and stop Jafar before he could overthrow their great city. In the Han Dynasty, there wasn't a tougher assassin to be found than Mulan, but she would only become a tough assassin after having trained for quite a while. And at the time she entered the Assassin's Brotherhood, they'd only accepted male applicants, but she was determined to join their ranks. And so she disguised herself as a man for the entirety of her first years of training. Mulan's primary weapon of choice to train with was a Jian sword that she'd inherited from her father, but she also had perfect aim with a bow and with throwing knives. But more so than anything else, the thing that set her apart from her peers was her immense determination. Any training task she was given, if she was unable to do it, she'd then work tirelessly at it until she was successful. Then after years of training and disguising herself, Mulan wanted to prove herself, as well as finally reveal who she truly was. And so Mulan took it upon herself to hunt down one of the most notorious Templar leaders in China, Shan Yu. It wasn't an easy task, but she did manage to slay the Templar, and she returned to the Brotherhood with his signature jagged sword, presenting it to her superiors and simultaneously revealing her true identity. While the Brotherhood was baffled, they couldn't help but accept Mulan. They'd been hunting Shan Yu for years, and if Mulan could defeat him, they clearly had to rethink their membership policies. This led to the rewriting of the rules allowing women to join the Assassin's Brotherhood. Mulan's legacy would forever live on as the woman who changed the Brotherhood for the better. That was the shorter story, so we can get into some design notes finally. And with the design for Mulan as an assassin, I had a hard time deciding what outfit to draw most inspiration from for Mulan, because in the animated movie, she has, 3 or 4 iconic outfits. I mean, she has her training outfit, she has her actual armor for battle, she has her green outfit, her blue outfit, and I didn't know which one I thought was the most iconic. So you can see I had a couple reference images of some of her different outfits that I was pulling from to design the assassin version of. I was also taking some inspiration from the video game, I think it's called Assassin's Creed Chronicles or something. It was one where it was a different format. It was like a bunch of side scrollers that took place in a bunch of different countries, and one of them was a Chinese Assassin's Creed sort of setup. So I was taking some inspiration from the characters in that for this. And finally, I was taking some inspiration from different armors that were from the Han Dynasty in China. I don't remember what I actually pulled from that and what I was kind of just making up based off Mulan's outfit. But overall, I think all the design elements came together kind of nicely into a finished product that I kind of like. And I hope you all do too. Here it is. And finally, we're on to Hercules, and for this one I don't really have a fleshed out story, because as it turns out, Hercules actually does appear in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I mean, as Heracles, but, you know, same thing. I'm not super up to date on all the Assassin's Creed lore. Obviously, I do a bit of research before I jump into writing the stories and starting to design the characters, and that's where I found that Heracles appears in the game. But I also saw that there's just lots of Greek mythology stuff already in the game. You fight Cerberus in one of the DLCs, and that's all super cool, but obviously made it hard for me to write Hercules into Assassin's Creed because he's already in there. But I also know that lots of people like hearing me talk about my design notes in videos as well, not just telling stories, because obviously I think the stories are a bit more fun, but I know people want to learn from the stuff that I'm learning from as I'm making these videos and trying out new stuff in my own artwork. So I figured I could just talk about what I'm doing with the designing of this character and the other ones in this video. And I think the most notable thing that I'm doing is the way I'm doing the backgrounds in this, where if you watch my videos regularly, you can see I'm doing something that I haven't done before, where I draw like a square and do a bit of the background in there and have the character kind of spilling out in front of it. And I considered having parts of their limbs that are farther back, like back legs, hidden in behind the comic book panel kind of thing. I didn't end up doing that, but I think that could have made the characters have a bit more depth. But overall, I am still happy with how it ended up turning out. And I've seen lots of people do this sort of background before, but the person I was taking inspiration from most recently is someone who on Instagram goes by kotiri.inc. I'll link their Instagram in the description. I love the artwork so much, and they recently did a few drawings like that, where they have the characters a little bit in front of and overlapping some comic panel backgrounds. I just think it's a really cool way to do a bit of background design work, but also put more emphasis on the character. I really like it. I liked experimenting with it in this. Admittedly, I was also trying to see if it was a way to do some background stuff, but have it take less time. Admittedly, these drawings didn't take any less time than usual, but I am still glad I did this, and I think I want to try it out a bit more in my other videos. Also, as you've likely guessed by now, I was taking inspiration for the design of this character from Assassin's Creed Odyssey characters, which ended up meaning that I didn't change this design as much as some of the other ones, because obviously Hercules, the character in the animated movie, his design already takes a lot of influence from ancient Greece. So this kind of just ended up being a slightly more armored version of Hercules with a bit more rendering and texture and detail, and of course with an Assassin's Creed hidden blade, which in Odyssey seemed like they were on top of the forearm instead of underneath it. As with most of the drawings in this, it was a fun experiment changing up my backgrounds a bit, and I hope you all like all the art and the video in general. Well, that's Disney Assassins for ya. I'm pretty happy with how all of those turned out. Also, I am gonna make a poster out of these, but instead of doing 4 individual ones, I'm just gonna put all 4 characters on one big poster that, at the time you're watching this, should be available in the little bar underneath this video. But anyway, tell me 2 things. 1, what do you think of the background format that I was drawing in this video? I really like it. I'm not gonna just do that, I'll probably always do a variety, but I'm curious what other people thought. And 2, should I pull inspiration from Disney characters more often? I don't know why it's not something I've done more of, because there's so many interesting characters from the history of Disney that provide a lot of different potential. What do you think? More Disney character stuff? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, if you're new to the channel and you're specifically looking for video game content, you came here in a good month, because I've done a ton of that this month. I've turned the new video game consoles into Transformers, I've turned famous video game characters into beasts, I did that Nintendo Miles Morales video I mentioned, and I do have a Cyberpunk video lined up for a couple weeks from now when Cyberpunk's coming out. But anyway, everybody, that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Thanks to everyone who submitted to the community redraw. Submissions for this month are now closed, but get ready for next month's theme because it's one that I'm super excited about, changing things up a bunch, and I think it's going to be for the better. Anyway, everybody, have a good week and goodbye.